As most of you know by now, the Rockets eliminated from the NBA playoffs in 2016. They were the 8th seed. They got trounced by a Steph Curry-less Warriors in 5 games. J.B. Bickerstaff's press conference, interesting to say the least, talking about how you don't get many chances to play in the NBA playoffs, and his team didn't seem too excited about it in the first place.
To me, this isn't about one game, right? To me, this is about the opportunities that we've had the entire year that forced it to come down to this game, that forced it to come down to us being the 8th seed. For me and for all of us, I hope this was a learning experience. The importance of seizing every opportunity that you're given, the opportunity of taking full advantage of every situation that you're in. These years in the NBA are priceless, and these years in the NBA aren't guaranteed to anybody. So when you're in these moments, you have to take full advantage of these moments. And unfortunately, we didn't do enough of that this year. And that put us in the 8th seed and put us in a very difficult position to play against, the best team in the history of basketball. So for me, that's the bigger picture, that we learn our lessons.
What went wrong with the Houston Rockets in 2015-2016? Well, a couple articles have been ran. Deadspin was thrilled to see them go. Hoops Hype looked a little more in depth into the Houston Rockets' problems for this year, and it comes down to a few different things, at least in my opinion, from what I saw this year. For one, the leadership qualities are in check. Dwight Howard and James Harden, not the best leaders of a team. And how important could that be? Well, if you look even at the GM and what he was doing with the team, they put a lot of emphasis on talent, as Hoops Hype was saying, instead of chemistry. And a great example of that is bringing in Lawson, who's not a guy that works well in any system just because he causes problems. He could be. He was fine with the Nuggets, and fine is asterisked because, again, that team had its own chemistry problems, and they never could get the most they wanted to out of Lawson, and Lawson couldn't get the most he wanted to out of his teammates. The same thing happened when he went to a team that has a perennial scorer in James Harden, a great rim protector, and still rebounding machine in Dwight Howard. But the Rockets last year, come back from 3-1 against the Clippers to go to the Western Conference Finals. A closer 5-game series than people really thought was going to be between the Rockets and the Warriors in last year's Western Conference Finals. But then this year, struggle to make the 8th seed. They get in on the last 2 games of the season, and then they get trounced by a Curryless Warriors. Yeah. I mean, they took 1 game. I know, it's a 5-game series, but this 5-game series wasn't close. Last year's 5-game series, the games were actually a lot closer. But the Warriors in itself, the Rockets in itself were a spectacle because we know they're not liked overall, not by everybody. There's a big Houston Rockets fan base, but their brand of basketball can be tough to watch. Francis, overall, throughout the whole year, how does a team with one of the best scorers and best defensive rim protectors fall that far? Well,
you mentioned it there. They may have one of the best defensive rim protectors, but they're pretty atrocious defensively considering the talent that they have in the team. So they were better offensively this year than they were 2014-2015. So there wasn't as much, I would say, to go against. Yes, they acquired Lawson, but going by their statistics offensively, they still looked efficient and they actually got better stats than what they did in 2014-2015. But their defensive statistics this year was so far worse than what it was last year. I think over every 100 possessions, they gave up 105 points, I believe.
Can't win games like that.
You can't win games like that, and especially against a team like Golden State, who are outscoring teams 30-40 points a game. And that last game, it was summarized in the last game. Dwight Howard throws up a 3 from deep just because the point is that Houston, everyone was kind of expecting them this season to try and add to their additional firepower. They surprised a lot of people last year. I wasn't too surprised. I thought that they looked, when they were on form, they looked very good. I think that James Harden has the ability to carry forward that team and is probably one of the best scorers, undoubtedly one of the best scorers in the league. But it was just adding maybe a couple of more mechanical pieces to try and help them well-rounded. But you mentioned it there. They brought in talent. They brought in someone who is an outright talent but may not have meshed with the starting 5 overall. And I think that's something that when you look at teams that are getting gradually better each year. Like the Spurs, yes, LaMarcus Aldridge is an unbelievable talent, but he also fits into that team mechanically with their system. He's not going to come in and just kind of disrupt the mentality of the Spurs already. So I think that Houston need to add a few more pieces that are going to come in and get the job done. And I'm not blaming this on Ty Lawson. I'm blaming it on coaching as well. I mean, fired their coach after, 11 games?
That's what I was going to touch on is the firing of Kevin McHale still... when we talked about this months ago, when Kevin McHale got fired, it was mostly because of a disagreement with long-term plans for the Rockets and his positioning with the Rockets organization. Now, granted, you see the difference. Coaching makes a huge difference in the NBA. Mm-hmm. JB Bickerstaff is an ill-experienced coach in the league, and that showed. He was getting outcoached by everybody that was willing to, who was willing to adjust in mid-game. Rockets don't adjust mid-game. JB Bickerstaff doesn't adjust mid-game. Kevin McHale did. Mm-hmm. So you take a team, they were 500 this year. They made the playoffs for, I think, the 5th straight year, which is great. But that team is 10 wins better, I believe, with Kevin McHale. And now Kevin McHale is either looking for a head coaching job, maybe the next, please don't hire fucking David Blatt. Or I know the Celtics organization has already called up and said, I'd love for you to come and work for us and have a job there. But the Rockets in themselves, 41-41 this season. Their defense, as you mentioned, fell off a cliff. And you watch them, and it's just annoying, to say the least, because this is a team that last year every fan of the Rockets was so convinced that they can go all the way because of James Harden. You can't.
Yeah.
Not when the rest of your team doesn't play defense, and not when you yourself doesn't play defense. Again, the same thing happened in Game 5. A perfect example. James Harden literally scored half the team's points. Everybody else, at least for the starters, was roughly, 2 of 20 from the field, 3 of 21 from the field. That happened all season long. And it's amazing they got 41 wins in the first place.
But you mentioned there, James Harden. We make fun of it. We make spoof videos. We talk about how he doesn't play defense, but at points when they get to the Western Conference Finals, people kind of overlook it because they're like, all right, he's a phenomenal scorer. Everything is going well with Houston for what they need to showcase that season. But then when you see them come up against adversity and you see them come up against teams that are just outrageous scorers and can shoot from anywhere, he's ideally, in certain points of the game, their first point of defense, right? He's the one that's supposed to go in. And you see Steph Curry's not exactly the best defender, and you see other guards aren't the most outrageous defenders, but their job is to try and put their opponent into a compromised position. James Harden doesn't even try at times. He just puts a hand up. The spoof videos are there to be laughed at. Hand down. Yeah, I'll just give them a tap. The spoof videos are there to be laughed at, yes, and they are funny, but if you are a Houston Rockets coach, you got to think about, okay, what's the best way we can try to do to maybe adjust this? He's not going to suddenly become an all-star defender, but you can maybe play a system that try and frustrate someone.
That's what annoys me the most about it, is last year there was a great compilation that was released and it said, this is what James Harden looks like playing defense. I'm being serious. And for like a 15-game stretch, he was an unbelievably good lockdown defender for a 15-game stretch when he really tried. Where'd that go? Yeah. What happened to that James Harden? Because when he plays both ends of the floor, that team is so much better than they already are with just James Harden playing just the offensive end of the floor. We've seen it a million times. That's what the Rockets should do. 1, let go of Bickerstaff and see if Kevin McHale will come back. 2, gotta let Dwight Howard walk. I think some of it is a chemistry issue. I think James Harden's the person you need to rely on for the future of that franchise. So you let Dwight Howard walk if he's for free agency, just not the Knicks. They might sign him. And see who you can pick up in free agency that isn't just talent. Pick up pieces. Pick up role players that will amplify James Harden's abilities and the rest of their three-point shooters and the Corey Brewers of the world who J.R. Jackson does not like too much. All right, comment below with what you think went wrong with the Houston Rockets in 2015-2016 at Francis_Maxwell on Twitter, at Francis Maxwell Host on Instagram, at Jason Rubin 91 on both, at TYT Sports, Facebook.com/TYT Sports, everything.com/TYT Sports.